Joining me now is Stephen Miller, founder of America First Legal and former senior advisor to President Trump. Mollie Hemingway, she's the editor-in-chief of The Federalist and a Fox News contributor. And Chris Bedford, executive editor of the upcoming Common Sense magazine. All thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. Mollie, to you first. Do you buy the idea that Democrats might be willing to throw Joe Biden under the bus here?
I think it really does depend at this point. We don't know what we don't know about what documents are there. We don't know how bad this situation is. And the Department of Justice seems to be being pretty gentle with him right now. They've put on this special counsel, but it has a very limited scope. They've been very friendly with him about unveiling this document dispute. And so if the Democrats decide that it's time for Joe Biden to go, I have no doubt that the Department of Justice will make life very difficult for him, but I don't know if we have that information yet.
So, Chris, I look at what Hillary Clinton did, right? She used BleachBit. She got rid of her emails. It kind of worked for her. So if you have classified documents at Joe Biden's house, the FBI allegedly isn't looking for them, and National Archives don't even know they're missing. Why didn't they burn them? Why didn't they shred the documents? But instead of doing that, they're like, aha, we got documents. We're going to turn them over to the Department of Justice and National Archives. It seems like someone knew those documents were there and are trying to trap Joe Biden so we can't run in 2024. But that's just my tinfoil hat take.
Well, that's what I've been thinking, too. My whole question this whole time has been cui bono. Now, when the midterms are coming around, everybody was expecting Republicans to make serious gains and Joe Biden to end up looking very, very weak. Everyone knows that Joe Biden was a compromise candidate in the first place, someone who was chosen because he was less wacky than his competitors, but wasn't the first choice of Democratic voters. And these things were turned over, these documents were turned over to the Department of Justice after years and years and years of sitting there just days before the election. The election didn't go the way that some Democrats, actually most people, expected it to go. And at the end, that ball had already started rolling. Things started to go, things were starting to move, an investigation was started, and now it's out of hand. I'm wondering if this was an internal hit against Joe Biden, because the whole time, whenever I look at, when you talk about hypocrisy, when you talk about double standards, those are just words that powerless people use to criticize those who are actually in power. Democrats are completely in power. They decide a lot of the times who gets prosecuted, who goes to prison, who doesn't. So when Joe Biden gets in trouble for this just before the midterm, I really start to wonder who's benefiting.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Stephen, I had to save this very special moment from Jen Psaki just for you. Watch this.
So this argument that this very different case of Biden's classified documents is going to be a political problem for him hasn't really even played out on the other side. And I think that's important to note, because the difference, as you said, is who's defending democracy. And the answer to that is pretty clear.
Yeah, so Stephen, they're trotting out the defending democracy defense again. Is that going to work, Stephen?
No, it's not going to work. Trying to spin Joe Biden's theft of classified documents and his family's illicit connections to foreign governments like China as a defense of democracy is a grave insult to the intelligence of every single American voter. And if that's the best argument they can come up with, then they are in serious trouble. You had James Comer, head of the Oversight Committee, on just a few minutes ago. He is going to drill down into this thing and get to the very rock bottom of it, because there are key questions that have to be asked. For example, why did the Biden Center at the University of Pennsylvania, where there was a stash of classified documents, receive indirectly all of these funds from China, right? China gave money to the University of Pennsylvania, and then money from the University of Pennsylvania starts flowing into the pockets of Joe Biden and the Biden Center. What was going on there? Whatever it was, it is shady as all get out. And I am convinced that once enough subpoenas are issued, once enough investigations are launched, what we are going to find is going to shock people.
No doubt about that. So Mollie, activist Chuck Todd put on his I'm a journalist hat for a while. Watch this.
Senator, do you have a crime that you think Hunter Biden committed? Because I've yet to see anybody explain it is not a crime to make money off your last name.
So, Chuck, you ought to read the Marco Polo report, where they detail all kinds of potential crimes. You know, Senator Grass and I certainly
let me just stop you there. Potential. Potential is innuendo. I'll take you at your word that you're ethically bothered by Hunter Biden. I'm curious, though. You seem to have a pattern.
Are you not?
I seem to have a pattern. I'm a journalist. I have to deal in facts.
Mollie, Chuck is absolutely unhinged. What do you think here?
Well, Chuck Todd is not a journalist, first of all.
No.
He spent years pushing the Russia collusion hoax, which was this deranged conspiracy theory that Donald Trump had won the election by colluding with Russia to steal the election. And he would come on day after day, week after week, and berate anybody who didn't share his conspiracy thinking. And now, when we're actually dealing with Hunter Biden, who's under real investigation, who we already know that he had problems paying taxes. Again, the Department of Justice was very friendly about letting him repay some of the taxes that he had failed to pay. He's got gun issues that he's dealt with, drug issues, prostitution issues. He's been working with foreign oligarchs and corrupt regimes across the world. And now, with all of that there that we know about, all of a sudden, Chuck Todd says, I don't think we should rush to judgment. He has done nothing but rush to judgment for years. And it's really one of these things, too. I think Republicans need to think about whether they should even, be on a show where you have some sort of deranged conspiracy theorist like that. He has shown himself to be operating in such bad faith for so long. There's really no need to treat him like a legitimate person.
I agree with that. Stop going on these left-wing programs because they're not media personalities. They're actually activists for the Democrat Party. But Chris, to that point, it seems like these media outlets and their personalities are more defensive of Joe Biden than even Democrats are of Joe Biden.
And remember, the media ran President Biden's campaign for him. He didn't even go out there. They had these weird scenes where he would sit inside of his basement or somewhere and he'd have cars turning their headlights on and off because people were too afraid. They ran that for him. They ran cover for Hunter Biden the whole time. They turned on the New York Post. They were in favor of censorship. They worked with, the government ended up working with social media companies like Twitter to suppress that story without anything ever coming out. And here you have Chuck Todd saying, why investigate if there's no crime? David Hersani's got a great piece right now at the Federalist saying, well, you investigate to find out what's going on. We know that there's corruption. We know that he was dealing with foreign powers. We know that he was on drugs. We know that he was paying $50,000 a month in rent to his dad while these living there, while all these classified documents were in the garage. Maybe it's worth poking around on that.
Yeah, no, it's worth poking around a little bit. But, we're speaking of hacks, and so here's Joe Scarborough.
Transparency, I think, works best for the Biden administration and works best for Biden himself because they find the documents, they report it immediately. A far different situation than Donald Trump's. Anybody who says it's not is a political hack.
So, Stephen, we heard from Professor Trulli that, in our first block, that this explanation, it doesn't work. It doesn't wash.
Well, it doesn't work on 45 different levels, not the least of which is that Joe Biden entered the White House 14 years ago.
Yeah. 14
years ago. He left the White House in 2017. You think these documents were just suddenly discovered? Something, somebody, some entity, someone with an interest decided to get these documents out into the public light now. We'll have to figure out through the House Oversight Committee and others who that person was, why it happened. But now you have Biden's lawyers working in secret to present documents in this highly choreographed fashion. There's clearly a cover-up involved here, preventing us from seeing why these documents were stolen, who had access to them, who benefited from these documents, how does this involve the pay-for-play scheme the Biden family was involved in. These are serious crimes that threaten national security.
And I think it's always important to remember that when these two cases are compared, Biden and Trump, Donald Trump had the ability to declassify his documents. Joe Biden had no ability to declassify his documents. Panel, thanks for that insight. I appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.